I would like to welcome everybody to today's Lunch and Learn webinar series brought to you by the Central and Southern Ohio HIMSS chapter. Today's presenter will be Ms. Lisa Cannon. She is the Director of Resource Management for the Chartis Group. But before I turn it over to Lisa, I would like to run through a few introductory slides. By the way, my name is Scott Mash, and I currently serve as the President of the Central and Southern Ohio HIMSS chapter, and I would like to thank everyone for attending today. The handouts are available. Handouts do include this introductory slide deck, Lisa's slide deck, the CEU form. We do offer CAHIMSS and CPHIMSS CEUs for every one of our educational opportunities. You'll also find the agenda for this spring conference, which is next Friday. You can get those in the GoToWebinar app. You should be able to find a handouts feature. If not, these will be posted to the CSOHIMSS website under the Events and Education Past Events link. We are recording this webinar, and it will be uploaded to the CSOHIMSS YouTube channel probably within about a week. If you would like to contact us at the CSOHIMSS chapter, our webpage is csohio.himsschapter.org, or you can email csohio.president or csohio.info. We do try to stay pretty active on social media. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter. Just look for CSOHIMSS, and same on LinkedIn. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, because without our sponsors, we could not provide these Lunch and Learn webinars, our spring conferences, and our OHIT Day events. Our premier level sponsors are Cover My Meds, Expedient, Ahead, Malwarebytes, Signet Excel, EHR Integration Services. Our elite level sponsors, Metasource, Blue Orange Compliance, Tech Systems, Obix, Data Gravity, Redspin, DMI, Time Warner Business Class, NTT Data, Excite Health Partners, Leidos, and Winthrop, Centricom, ServiceNow, and Sagacious Consultants. And our partner level sponsors, thank you as well. I do want to share some information on our upcoming events. The next big event is next Friday, May 20th. This is one of our two premier events that we put on every year. This one we're calling the Hacker's Guide to Hacking Healthcare, the conference on privacy and cybersecurity that you just can't miss. We have our goal with this conference is it's not just intended for the security professionals. By all means, those IT security professionals are going to get a lot out of this conference, but we've tried to structure it with our speakers such that it will apply to everyone working in healthcare. Again, this is going to be Friday, May 20th at the Conference Center at OCLC up in Dublin. We have decided to offer a pretty hefty discount. If you enter Spring 50 at checkout, you will get 50% off the regular price, which our conferences are always very fairly priced. Now you can get one heck of a good deal. So I'd recommend, if you do plan on attending, you jump over to the registration site shortly after this webinar before it fills up and you miss your opportunity. Excuse me. Also like to share some information on our upcoming Lunch and Learn webinars. Next month, June 8th, the topic will be best practices for avoiding and mitigating breaches. Presenter will be Mr. Patrick Quirk. In July, our Lunch and Learn webinar will be enabling actionable real-time data through cloud analytics as a service. Ms. Joanne White and Mr. Mark Gershwitz from Wood County Hospital will be our presenters. In August, we are going to have it's going to be a security privacy themed webinar. John DiMaggio, CEO and founder of Blue Orange Compliance, will be presenting. In September, Ms. Christine Piper will be presenting a presentation around EHR conversions and the best practices for storing that patient data during your conversion. October, I believe we do have a speaker lined up. I do need speakers for November, December, and on into the next calendar year. So by all means, if you're interested in presenting, please contact me. The presentations can be any HIT-related subject. So we love it when our members present. So by all means, please let me know if you're interested in serving as a presenter. Now, give me just a second, and Lisa, say hi.
Hi.
All right, audio is working. I'm transitioning you to, you are now in the driver's seat, and I can see your screen.
Great, thanks. Hi, everybody. I am really excited to be here today. Thank you so much for that introduction, Scott. We're going to spend some time talking about healthcare IT and career pursuits. Just thoughts on how to get where we want to go. How do we move through our career within healthcare IT? And I'm excited to share some of my thoughts with you on this and what I'm seeing in the research and what we see every day out there in the world. So I hope you find the information helpful. I'm going to jump on in here. We have a lot of information to cover. I'm very excited to present this to you. So first off, our agenda. So what we'll cover in the course of the next, 45 minutes or so will include the current state of the IT job market. And we'll talk about that at the national and state level. We'll also talk about where the hot jobs are. What are the hot jobs that we're seeing in the research? We'll talk about your personal brand. You know, how do you present to others? How do others perceive you as related to your career? We'll talk about social networking and how to use it to your advantage, to your career advantage. We'll spend some time specifically focusing on LinkedIn, and I'll get into more of the details about why as we get to that part in the agenda. And we will wrap up with the recruiting hints. We'll take a moment to talk about your resume, a bit about interviewing, and follow-up. So that's what we will do over the course of this presentation. But first, I'd like to understand a little bit more about who all is on this call with me. So I'd like you to get your phone, which you probably have within arm's reach, right? Get out your phone, please, and go to your text function. We're going to use an application called Poll Everywhere. And I'd invite you to use this with me. If you could text the word Chartis, C-H-A-R-T-I-S, to the code 22333 on your phone. And you do that just once and you'll join my poll. I have a couple questions that I'd like to ask this group. So the first question is, I want to understand who's out here in the audience. Since I can't see you and I can't get a show of hands, I'd like to know which of the following most closely describes you. I am a traditional college student seeking a job possibly within the healthcare IT space, or I'm established in a current career but I'm seeking a possible job transition, or none of the above. And we'll just give it a few minutes here. We'll see the poll shift and jump around here as folks enter their information. Interesting. Okay, so fairly even split here. Okay. So while we have some folks that are early in their careers, we also have some folks more established in their careers considering a job transition. So very good. And then we have a couple folks, none of the above. So hopefully the majority of the information here will still be relevant to those folks as well. Great. Okay, I have one other question for the group as we get in today. Now, on this next slide, you do not need to again text the word Chartis. You've already done that, so you don't need to do that. This question is a free text, so you just type in your phone a free text answer. As you're considering transitioning or you're considering a possible change, or you're graduating and you're considering that first job in healthcare IT. You know, what are your questions? What are your biggest fears? What keeps you up at night? What are those thoughts that kind of drive some of your uncertainty, perhaps, about how to take that next step? And just type your answer to that question in your text box, and it will just start to populate up here on the screen. So just want to pause for a moment and give you all time to do that. Oh, wow. Even sideways text. That's interesting. So it looks to be, a lot about the word experience, about, you know, do I have the right experience? Do I have the necessary background? Do I have enough of the advanced knowledge, the advanced experience and clinical background? Writing resume. We'll talk about that. Stability. Limited skills. Very good. Communicating, writing. Well, very good. Well, I think a lot of what we will be covering today in the short time we have together will touch on a lot of these things. And I think there's always the possibility to go deeper with some of these concepts, and not to be a spoiler alert here, but we're hoping in the fall, at the fall CSOHIMSS conference, to do a breakout session on careers, healthcare IT careers. And I'm working with a subset of individuals who are a part of our membership subcommittee, Donna Evans and Victoria Wanjia, who are working with me specifically on how we can build more around this topic. For our membership. So this is great insight. Thank you all for taking a moment and doing this. And I'll work hard in the presentation to cover these topics. So let's start with,
Lisa, we've lost you on the audio. I hope you're still...
Oh, really?
Yes, ma'am. Up, you're back. Yep, we've lost you again.
Oh, no.
I think you're cutting in and out. It might be your network connection is having a few issues.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Okay, just let me know. Hopefully it won't be an issue. I have what I think is a strong signal here. So, okay. So the top of the screen here, your plan. You know, we all set out as we're kind of envisioning our career and our approach to moving through it as kind of a point A to point B, the start, the finish line. And we think perhaps there will be a nice even road ahead of us, right? But the reality, and I know I can relate to the bottom half of this picture, but the reality is it just doesn't always go that way, right? I think we could probably all relate to detours or pitfalls along the way in things that we're doing with our career for those of us that are further along in our career than others. Certainly if you're new or just coming into the career workforce, coming out of an academic setting as a typical undergrad graduate, the reality is that it doesn't always go as planned, and we need to think about how to be patient, how to be have an open mind, and not let frustration get in the way of progressing through our career. You know, and in a lot of ways, and we've seen this happen time and time again, right? The jobs that might be out there for us in the next, say, 5 to 10 years, we may not even know about them today, right? Things are evolving at such rapid pace, and the need for certain skill sets are changing so much as a result of all of these changes happening within healthcare IT today, that our ability to evolve with that and grow our career and develop professionally is just pivotal to being able to keep pace with some of those changes to our profession. So I think it goes without saying, along the way in your journey, it takes a lot of help, assistance, advice, guidance, right? And asking for that is very important. And what I'd like to do is just talk for just a moment, again, about the journey, but talk about my own journey, because certainly I don't believe I saw the role I'm in today in my future when, say, I was coming out of college about, 25, 30 years ago. So I graduated from nursing school with a diploma back in the day, 1990, and I knew I wanted to get into ICU nursing. I wanted to be a critical care nurse. I went down that path. I liked the intensity. I liked the energy within the ICUs. I knew that was what I wanted to do, and I eagerly got into that clinically. I went on to get my bachelor's right away, and then I went back to school and went after a graduate degree. And as I was determining going back to school for my graduate degree, I wanted to look for something different. I personally knew nursing administration was not in my bag. It was not something that excited me. I was not passionate about spending hours dealing with nursing administration trivia. It just seemed to me. I wanted to have something which I felt to be more impactful. Again, these are my personal opinions about what I saw and what I felt at that time in my life for my profession. I went after a master's degree. It was a dual track. It was an MS with an MBA. And at the time, there were not a lot of dual programs. And this was something that, as I looked at the program and I looked at the content, I felt it was a differentiator. And in the 3 years it took me to complete the program, in that time, more dual programs popped up in the central Ohio area. I went to Wright State in Dayton and thoroughly enjoyed that time. My thesis was on patient-centered care, and which, you know, now we hear about the patient medical-centered home, very much a precursor for that. And I was really jazzed. But as I finished my graduate studies, I still found myself at the bedside. I had not found the ability to move from clinical setting into the IT setting. And I was really challenged by that. And it was very hard to find an opportunity to break out. I interned as part of my master's program with Arthur Andersen Consulting, which is now Accenture Consulting. And I was bit by the bug. I knew I wanted to get into consulting, healthcare consulting. I still didn't know it was going to be IT, though. I knew it was healthcare consulting, though. So I was fortunate enough to finally find an opportunity in a hospital actually in Florida where they were implementing SMS Envision as their electronic medical record. And I was able to get a role as a clinician, a nurse, in their IT department, functioning as a systems analyst. I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I was trying to wrap my head around what it all meant, and I quickly found myself learning how to build SMS Envision product in Malvern, Pennsylvania, and I didn't know exactly what I'd gotten my hands into. But the exciting thing about it was that I was able to take my knowledge from being clinical and bring it to the IT. And at that point, I began a further transformation of my career. I became not only the clinician who could learn IT, but then be able to translate it for the population that I was working within that setting. I was able to transition from working at a hospital environment, I was at the Florida Hospital in Orlando, into consulting within about 3 years. Headhunters were calling me. I finally listened to one of them, and I got into consulting early in the Y2K days, early in '99, when that was the pressing issue. And I've been in consulting ever since. I've held a number of positions where I was actually in the field, delivering work, project management, implementation-minded. But then, as our family grew, I transitioned into operational work. And I was fortunate, I was very blessed to have an organization be willing to transition me from a billable consultant in the field to an operations resource. And I've been able to now enter into operational leadership positions such as Director of Recruiting, Director of Talent, Director of Resource Management. The overall umbrella of what I get to do now is not that far from my nursing days of taking care of patients. Now I get to take care of colleagues that I'm really fortunate enough to get to work with every day, and I get to strive to make it the best work experience for them. So I got to say, it was never something I saw in my future, but the important points along the way here were that I asked for advice. I had a career mentor. I asked people questions along the way, choices I was going to make as I was developing kind of the steps and considering the next pivotal steps in my career formation. I sought outside counsel and got some advice. And I would suggest that for all of you as well. Don't let this be just your journey and your journey alone. Get help. Have somebody as a career mentor, somebody who's able to help you. And this is somebody usually more seasoned in their career. They don't have to have the deep hands-on experience that you bring for whatever your specific background is. But some of the most successful executives out there have career coaches. Now, I'm not suggesting you need to pay for that kind of advice. I'm asking that you consider networking with people and consider looking for folks to help give you a sounding board. And I think you'll find that that's a very important part of our growth in our profession and our growth overall as professionals. So let's talk a bit about the state of the IT job market. So what's out there? What is going on? What's going on in the world? Well, in the U.S., the IT sector is about 5.9 million jobs, both technical and non-technical, and that, said another way, is a little over 5% of the workforce of the U.S., or about 1 in 19 jobs. So we have a significant presence out there. And this is IT, again, just the general umbrella of IT, not necessarily healthcare IT yet. We're seeing, and this data is from CompTIA's Industry Outlook 2016, and what they saw was that low unemployment rates for IT workers combined with strong demand for skill sets equates to a seller's market. We're looking for skilled resources out there. Wages, they are expecting to grow after having spent about a decade at being flat. So this is really good, very promising for all of us who are in the IT industry. Again, this is the IT umbrella. Healthcare specifically is about 0.5% of the core IT jobs in the industry. However, in a year from 14 to 16, in 2 years, it saw a little over a 4% increase in growth. So it's a growing profession. Obviously, there are a lot of major initiatives out there driving that growth, jobs that we wouldn't have even expected. So when we think about Ohio, how does Ohio stack up, right? Well, Ohio is 10th in the U.S. with regards for opportunity, IT occupations and opportunity, just the sheer quantity of available jobs. So that's pretty good. We're in the top 10. We're number 10, but it could be worse. This is good. So what are those jobs? Where are those opportunities? And Scott, you're going to love the first one here. The top occupations that they saw in 2015, the research showed cybersecurity resources, analysts who could focus on security as the #1 growing job. And obviously, to Scott's points, the subject of our spring conference next Friday. Web developers, everything moving to a portal approach for being able to get your healthcare record mobile and in the home. So web developers, software developers, both of applications and systems. Systems analysts, people who focus on understanding a specific application or area of responsibility within the IT landscape. Support specialists, folks that handle break fix, maintenance, upgrades, things to keep the lights on. And then leadership, people to lead this growing workforce, managers, directors, CIOs. So it's an exciting time, right? But there's still the age-old question, right? And I think we saw this. Many of you listed this in the poll, the second poll. How do I get experience? How do I break in? What's the, is there a magic pill? Is there some way? How do I get through door number one? So that still remains. So let's talk about that. Let's figure out how we can crack that. So how do we break in? This is what I would say from what I've seen as a recruiter, what I've seen actually out there and talking to people and doing my research. Bottom line, it comes down to getting that hands-on experience. How do I get that hands-on experience, you'll say? If you're in a hospital, you need to understand, you need to learn a specific product and become an exceptional user of that product. So if you're trying to get into healthcare IT and your hospital is running the Cerner EMR product, you're on PowerChart, become a super user for PowerChart. Be able to teach others how to use it. Look for ways to build your internal credibility. Become an expert around a certain area, something that you're doing today. Lateral within the organization. Look for ways to have a lateral experience in terms of a job opening. But we can't beat the hands-on experience. So finding an opportunity to become an expert at that, at something, is important. Who's hiring those people? Well, we've talked about hospitals for a variety of reasons, but vendors are as well. Vendors will consider hiring resources without a lot of experience in their application module. And because they'll train you, they'll teach you their product, you'll learn the associated workflows for implementing that product. So going the vendor route is a definite possibility. The three places that I would focus on if I had little to no experience and I'm trying to build my base of experience are working within my hospital or my provider, like an ambulatory provider environment. Hands down, you can't beat understanding patient workflow, how a patient moves through the system, how they get admitted in the ER and they move to the floor and they go to the OR and they get discharged, understanding who touches the patient, how the medical record flows, also in the ambulatory environment. And with everything moving with population health and all of the emphasis on in-home, patient in-home care, and a strong ambulatory background is a very lucrative background to have. All this said, you need to have intellectual curiosity. You need to find successes internally to what you do today and capitalize on them. Being able to teach and advise others is going to help build that credibility and help you move. If you can be a super user, if you can be a trainer, that is fabulous. Use that to catapult to other work within healthcare IT. That alone, in and of itself, is not going to be broad enough for some broader-based career choices. If your goal is to get into consulting and you want to know how to get in consulting, you're going to have to develop a very broad base of knowledge, both from an application perspective, so start to finish of an EHR implementation, let's say. So starting with understanding how maybe even vendor selection occurs, but if not the selection, well then the implementation process through go live, through optimization even perhaps, where we go in and we improve upon the baseline model we took live. That's all very relevant experience that if I want to go into consulting, when I go and interview, I'm bringing this book of experience with me. Again, vendors will help you get there as well. I have staff augmentation firms here. And staff augmentation firms, these are organizations that may consider themselves consulting organizations. They work with hospital delivery networks, delivery providers who have a need for staff to support various IT initiatives. But usually the type of consultants that they'll hire in are more narrowly focused. They're very, very strong. They're subject matter experts on X. They're an Epic orders builder, or they're a Cerner power chart expert, or they're an interface analyst expert. And they can go in and work for a client X for a while and then go to client Y for a while. But if you're looking for broader-based consulting and you want to think more bigger picture about possibly having a consulting career at some point, then to get there, you really need that. You need to spend some time gaining that broader-based experience. The operational experience, the workflow understanding is really, really critical. So let's shift and talk about our brand. So we're evolving constantly, right? Or I should say our brand should be evolving constantly. Who you are today in your professional career is different than who you were a year ago. Where are you in your evolution of yourself and your profession? The questions you need to ask yourself: how do I perceive myself? But then, how do others perceive me? And I love this picture because I think it's spot on, right? How I look at myself versus how others see me professionally could be two different things. We don't want it to be. So let's talk about it. Let's take the first question. So how do I perceive myself? It's important to really spend some time, kind of deep in thought, some self-awareness. Ask yourself, what am I good at? But, where do I struggle? What is hard for me to do? What do I put off because, gosh, I just cannot do this well, and it's always a challenge, and it's something that I don't enjoy doing. And understand that for ourselves. Do some soul searching. Assess your soft skills. I would suggest, go out for coffee with somebody, again, back to the whole get somebody who you admire, who could help you in your career, and have an open conversation, and try this exercise. Write down 5 adjectives that you feel describe you. How do you describe yourself? Ask this other person to do the exact same thing, and then compare notes. And look at that and compare. Do you see yourself at one end of a spectrum, and they see you at the other end of a spectrum on a particular area of skills? Think through how you handle intangible competencies such as mentoring, team building, leadership, communication. These are all extremely important. It's one thing to have the book smarts, one would say, but it's the soft skills that can really be transformational to helping us with our career. Bottom line, you have to be honest with yourself. You must be authentic. You can't be living somebody else's perception of you. You are your own brand manager, so you have to take charge of how others perceive you. Where does your passion lie? That's going to help build your understanding for where you want to take your career. Let's face it, we want to be doing things we love to do. Then, if you only had 30 seconds, the typical elevator pitch, what would you say about yourself? Think about this. It should sound informal. It should sound unrehearsed. But think about it. If you had the opportunity to bend somebody's ear, hey, I'm looking for a job. I'm thinking about making a career switch. I'm trying to change. I want to get into X. And they say, oh, really? What, tell me about that. How do you see yourself there? Practice that. Think about it. Give some thoughts to some quick bullet points that you'd like to say. Rehearse it on your voicemail. Rehearse it with your cell phone, your laptop. Practice hearing it and refining your comments. Think about asking for feedback. This is one of the most important and vital steps in our career. Don't be afraid of this. And I have to say, this is something I had to work at. It was very hard for me to ask for informal feedback just along the way. But now it's something I do and I embrace. If I'm getting ready to have a meeting where I have to facilitate a large group discussion, I may say to a peer of mine, hey, this is something I've been working on. Can you tell me at the end of this presentation, can I just get with you? I'd like to know how I did. This is critical. Again, this comes back to how you think you did in a situation and how others perceived you doing. So very important, and I would really suggest that. Just get out there every opportunity you can in meetings, at conferences. Be mindful of how others are experiencing you and how you want that to be. What do you want them to know about you or to experience of you? I mentioned it before, I'll say it again, this is imperative. How are you staying relevant? How are you competitive? You have to be a student of the industry, and we have to constantly reinvent ourselves to keep up with the rapid pace of change we're experiencing. Our online presence we'll talk further about, but this is, don't fall victim to thinking that social media alone can immediately increase your market value out there to a recruiter. It's much bigger than that. It's a never-ending process. Social media should be seen as an enabler of your brand and your image. It's the vehicle. It's one of the vehicles. It used to be said, or it's said that we're no longer a knowledge-based economy. We're now a wisdom-based economy. And it's no longer who you know solely. It's what you do with what you know. How are you able to improve upon and pivot from and take your experiences, your credibility in one area, your knowledge, and turn it and utilize it? And how do people perceive your ability to do that? I found this quote. I really like it. We judge ourselves by what we feel capable of doing, while others judge us by what we've already done. When you're a clinician and you're trying to get into healthcare IT, your path may make total sense to you for how you want to get there. I want to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'll get here. But that doesn't mean it's clear to everyone else. And that could be said for anybody. I'm in IT, I'm in the banking industry, I want to get into healthcare IT because that excites me more. Well, how am I going to get there? Well, it's clear to me, but it's not clear to the healthcare IT recruiter, perhaps. How do we influence others about our capability? Say, hey, I'm thinking of changing jobs and I want to move to X. Well, it really comes down to educating and educating our network. It's really important. So how do we do that? So let's shift a bit and talk now about social networking and how it enables our progression in our careers to be manifested. Training your network, talking to your network of friends, families, coworkers, people who can help and influence you, your ability to get that next job. Avoid the bad promoter. Somebody who says, well, my brother-in-law is looking for work, but then they can't answer the follow-up question of, well, what's your brother-in-law do? Make sure people who can help in your career journey understand what you do, what your capabilities are, and where you want to go. Ask yourself, how many in my network know what I'm looking for? If nobody does, then it's just me, myself, and I trying to find that next job or that job that I want. There's a number of platforms that you could be on in terms of social networking. There's a plethora of places to consider. It all requires work. Your online presence, your visibility out there requires your care and feeding of that. It's not meant to be a self-promotion platform. It's meant that you add value to the audience that you're serving. So the fact that you're on LinkedIn, or you're in a LinkedIn group, or you're on an online site where you're able to contribute thoughts. Consider strategically volunteering on things or in organizations, professional organizations, to help you in your career. Job shadowing, board memberships, opportunities to get involved. The CSOHIMSS, I'll put a shameless plug in there. But we welcome those opportunities, and they're great networking opportunities. So let's take a minute talking about your digital reputation, because this I think is really important to think about even before we get in further. Look at those statistics. Recruiters using Twitter, about half of them. Are you on Twitter? Do you tweet? 66% are using Facebook. I would challenge that. I actually think that's a higher number. I don't know a recruiter today who doesn't get a resume and immediately go look for you on Facebook or look for you on LinkedIn. That number for LinkedIn, I totally believe, 97%. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. But what's worse than not having a profile, because it's expected that you would have an online profile, is having a bad online profile. Think about it. You know, Facebook users, there's about 1 billion of us out there. About 15% of the world population is on Facebook. We leave traces everywhere. Think about what trace you're leaving, professionally and personally. I would welcome you, by the way, I'll put this in here as well, to network with, I'm happy to network with you. I'm sure any of the board members of CSOHIMSS, you know, find us on LinkedIn, connect with us on LinkedIn as a CSOHIMSS member. Join our LinkedIn group so that you can be involved in some of those dialogues that we have out there. Very important. So let's spend some time talking about LinkedIn in particular. Number one source for finding resources. Recruiters are out here. They're searching for you. Again, if they don't find you, they might write you off right away. You must have a professional picture. Please don't post a picture from a Christmas party you were at. Please don't post just a picture with somebody's arm around you and it's apparent that you've cropped the picture, you cropped somebody else. Take a professional picture. Use error-free writing. Again, it just shows the quality of the work that you can produce. Make sure your content's well organized. Give thought to this. Think of it as your online resume, your online CV. Consider adding media, because now LinkedIn allows for media links within your file. Make sure you have an eye-catching headline. You can see I updated mine most recently to an experienced talent leader. It doesn't read Director of Resource Management. It shows that I work for the Chartis group, but it talks more broadly about my background in my headline. Your summary needs to be compelling. Write it in first person. Again, we want to understand and evoke to the reader that we are passionate about the work we're doing. If you're looking to make a career move, then this needs to be forward-looking and help you project yourself in the image with the skills and experience towards what you're looking for. So it needs to be relevant. Think about this. And I say this because I've been there. If I'm the clinician who's writing my LinkedIn profile, I don't need to put down that I knew how to take vital signs. I was the charge nurse for various shifts. I precepted nursing students. That's not relevant to the job I want as the nursing analyst for future EHR implementations at my hospital. Think about what's relevant. I've seen examples like this person has a lot of experience with being a realtor. You know, and some people do that on the side, right? But they had it bogging up all of their LinkedIn profile. It's not relevant to the job I'm looking at them for. It got in my way, and it was very easy to step over all that. It got in the way. I could not step over it, I should say. Recommendations from other people need to be relevant to the industry and the role that you're trying to move into. Again, realtor example, realtor recommendations on LinkedIn. they're not going to hold any water for me as a recruiter looking at you, thinking about you for a healthcare IT job, right? Again, media images, samples, video links, hyperlinks to documents, anything that you're allowed, from your organization or that you have personally that you feel you can post, put that in there. You want people to stay on your profile. I think it used to be said resumes people give anywhere from 10 to 20 seconds of time. A recruiter on LinkedIn is spending anywhere from 7 to 10 seconds on your profile. You want them to stay longer on your profile. Think about adding media. Think about how it reads to somebody who surfs LinkedIn all day. How do you differentiate? How do you stand out? So we'll just take the last few minutes talking a bit more about the recruiting process. And let me just say before I get into this, I want to address a question I hear a lot from people out there looking, and that is, should I go through a third-party agency if a recruiter contacts me and they're willing to represent me for a fee, or maybe for no fee because they say that whoever hires me will pay a fee? So a headhunter or a third-party agency. Well, what I'll say to that question is, if I'm the hiring company and you come to me through a third-party agency, you are not as attractive to me as if I had found you on my own accord. So how am I going to find you? You're going to be out on LinkedIn. You're going to have a snazzy profile out there. You're going to have updated your resume. You're networking, right? And the third-party agency bringing you to me is going to charge me a fee. So you are already more expensive than candidate B who came directly to me. So not only will I have to pay your first year salary, but I'll have to pay a portion of that salary to this recruiter, this headhunter, this third-party agency. Also, let's just say that the job you were presented for, you weren't exactly a match. But 4 months from now, I have a new job, and I think, gosh, if I could just get Jim Smith again from agency XYZ, he'd be perfect for this. I have to go through that agency to get you again. For a year, I'm bound to that agency. And I say all this by most typical contract relationships between third-party recruiters and employers. So just be sure before you agree to go through a third party or sign up with an agency to look for work out there that you consider that and weigh that. You might want to give it a shot on your own. And if you are really having a hard time, then maybe go through a third party. So let's spend a moment here. Let's talk about the resume for a moment, just a couple sentences on this. Guys, don't bury the lead in the resume. This thing needs to sing your praises. And the thoughts to keep with this is make sure that the most meaningful information is found before the scroll, right? Before the scroll. Because I'm reading your resume electronically. I don't have necessarily a paper in front of me. I'm scrolling. If I'm not interested in you before I scroll down, you've lost me. So keep that in mind. Don't let it be a laundry list of left justified bullets. It needs to be well thought out. Grammar, spelling, check your acronyms, all of that's very important. So let's say I'm the recruiter and I'm interested in you. I like what your resume says. I reach out to you. You're on the phone with me. This may not be an interview with the company, but you're talking to the recruiter. Think about the fact that you have to first sell this recruiter on you before you even get to the hiring manager. So your vocal energy is extremely important. How you present yourself to this recruiter, extremely important. Because if they like you, if they want you in their organization and they think that you are a match for the role they're trying to fill, they will advocate for you internally. So go into that conversation, having researched the company, look at their website, look at glassdoor.com and look at how past and current employees are talking about the company. Look at Wikipedia about the company. Get all the information you can, because the recruiter may ask you some questions. You know, do you know anything about us? What do you know? What do you understand? You might want to be able to talk to some of the main service offerings that you understand they have, or maybe one of the recent press releases that they were in the news on. But doing that shows that you've gone a step beyond, right? You took the time to do that, and you articulate it in your conversation. During that interview, and it could be on the phone, I've mentioned vocal presence, vocal energy, very important. It might be a video Skype interview, or it might be in person. You want to be engaged. You want to have really good eye contact. You want to, and some of this stuff, and guys, I know, and this may sound trivial or it may sound very common sense, but you would be surprised some of the stories that if you got a group of recruiters around could tell about really bad experiences where some of this stuff that you would think might be common sense, it's just not. If you have a hard time making eye contact in conversation, practice that. Again, back to that person who can be your confidant, your mentor. Practice those conversations. Look, if you can't look in their eyes, look between their eyes. Look at the space between their eyebrows. Look at the bridge of their nose. Focus on them. Consider any nervous habits that you might have and rehearse a conversation in a mirror. Consider what clothes you're going to wear. Again, these are really important. And the Skype interview, video interview, should be taken no less serious than an in-person interview is. You should still be dressed professionally. And by professionally, guys, I mean jackets, ties, women, suit dresses, suit jackets. I would never underdress for an interview. Nobody will be concerned because you showed up for an interview overdressed in a suit for a job that you would wear, Dockers and a shirt to every day. That's okay. It's showing your professionalism. Don't bring up salary concerns at first. When they say to you, what questions do you have? Be prepared. Think about what questions you may have. What would my orientation look like if I were to be hired? That's a good one. Ask that person, what do you love, what do you like about working at this organization? People love to talk about themselves, right? So spin the question around and ask the person, tell me why you like to work here. And bottom line, after the interview, please follow up. Jot down a thank you. Send an email, if not a formal handwritten letter, which is always nicer, but in hospitals could take a day and a month to find its way to the IT department's mailbox. But don't go radio silent. Recruiters know you're talking to more than one potential employer. Be honest. But you don't need to be threatening in that honesty, but you can be honest and just bring it up subtly. I'm talking to a couple different companies, and as I'm considering different options, the one question that I have for you is X. Bottom line, it's a small world. Our networks are big. We talked about the numbers, but bottom line, the healthcare IT network is pretty intimate, and you'll be surprised to find how many people over time would be able to know and recognize folks along the way. So don't burn bridges, and remember to just always be able to end the recruiting process professionally, however that may go. And guys, that's it. I think I have about 2 minutes left to take questions. I apologize. We took it almost all the way up to the hour. I hope you found this information interesting and helpful. I would welcome the opportunity to take some questions. And if we run out of time here, find me on LinkedIn. Send an email through LinkedIn. I'd be happy to follow up with any of you outside of the call.
And Lisa, I want to thank you so much for this presentation today. It's funny because you were talking about, become an expert in a specific area, find your niche, and it's because that's kind of the way that I came to also be a consultant today. I started my career in IT, transitioned to healthcare IT, kind of just because no one else had worked at my employer at the time would pick it up, became a meaningful use expert, and now today, I transitioned to a consulting role where I assist organizations with, bridging the gap between between technology, healthcare technology, and payment reform related regulations like meaningful use, PQRS, and now MACRA. So you guys, there's a niche out there for you. Now we do have one question. Question came in and says, I'm an older worker with a lot of experience in healthcare IT related projects. I'm an interface expert and I'm also considering consulting. Is there a market out there for those that are further along in their career that sometimes employers will not look at favorably in the consulting realm?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the bottom line, and I work with a number of interface analysts and interface managers and senior managers in our organizations. It's some of us are more seasoned in our professions than others, and there's a lot to be said for that. But I think what's important for those of us that are more seasoned than others is that we've stayed relevant. So as long as your resume and as long as your online presence speaks of your ongoing education, that you're staying relevant, perhaps if there's ways to articulate that in your resume, maybe recent, anything that you've recently done on newer initiatives within your organization. Inserting that language into your resume, those key words around newer initiatives will catch the eye of a recruiter. And then, showing your experience and your length of time professionally in your resume is okay. Because I think a lot of us in the industry understand that some folks have been here for a while and have seen a lot of things evolve. So I think best of luck to you in your pursuits.
Well, Lisa, it is the top of the hour. That was, oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. One just came in real quick. We have time. Someone suggested taking the CSOHIMSS test, and absolutely, I would strongly recommend seeking the CSOHIMSS or CSOHIMSS certification along with any other certifications. Now, Lisa, how do you, how do employers and consulting firms and resource agencies view certifications? And in addition to just viewing certifications on their own, certification versus degree?
Great question, right? Because in IT, for a lot of things, it's not always book smart type of things, right? We definitely value both the academic background as well as various technical and industry-specific certifications, vendor-specific certifications. Project management, a PMP certification through PMI, for example, is an industry standard around PM project management. If you can get your PMP, that is definitely a marketable tool, not a requirement though. Experience definitely stands out on a resume where if you've managed and you can exemplify how you've managed, where you've managed, but you also happen to be a PMP, that just proves you have the methodology, training, and background to be able to lead a PM initiative. Vendor certifications, the gorilla in the room is EPIC. Having an EPIC certification makes you extremely marketable. EPIC experience makes you extremely marketable outside of your hospital environment. EPIC knows that. Hospitals know that. They actually somewhat tie our hands in third-party world from hiring for a while until a hospital can get beyond their good implementation process. So if there's an opportunity to get certified, if there's an opportunity to take on some academic classes, I would wholeheartedly recommend that. If you can make it work for you professionally and personally, I think it can be a differentiator.
Well, that is our last question. Every time I say that, another question comes in. Sorry, Lisa.
That's okay.
I have a clinical background as well as health IT. How can I continue to utilize my health IT background when I complete my graduate degree and become a nurse practitioner? Is there a market for clinical folks with a health IT background?
Wow, absolutely. You know, there are a number of healthcare consulting organizations that look for folks like you, advanced practitioners, physicians, nurses, pharmacists, ancillary resources who have both the credibility operationally, clinically, and then also have learned the IT portion. Absolutely, hands down, you are a marketable resource. Now, as you're finishing and earning and getting your clinical nurse practitioner license, you should also be looking at, you know, what EHR system are you documenting in? You could consider becoming, really honing your skills around being a super user with that, so that you can become very marketable around that vendor knowledge, perhaps. A bigger opportunity, and perhaps if this excites you, would be to consider understanding some of those other leading healthcare initiatives right now, population health, meaningful use, some of the things that Scott was just talking about. And as a nurse practitioner, what are some of those initiatives that impact you in your practice? Once you've lived through the experience of that initiative as related to your experience clinically as a nurse practitioner, you are an experienced, marketable resource, and you're golden now. Now you come to me as a recruiter with both the credibility of your licensure and your experience in the workforce, and you also have X initiative under your belt that you've completed and got the experience and can talk about it from front to back. And now, I mean, you're golden. You're extremely marketable.
Well, that is our last question. We are past our 1 o'clock time. Again, Lisa, thank you very much. Very, very much appreciated your presentation. Great advice. To our attendees, thank you for attending today. The slides are going to be available on the CSOHIMSS website, as is a recording of this webinar. And with that, thank you all, and we'll see you next month.